Hello, thank you for tuning in to Stories That Shaped Her. My name is Tammy Freed, and I am here with my friend Laura Thomas, who is going to share her story of love and resilience getting through her husband's life and passing with stage 4 brain cancer. So, Laura, can you take us back to the beginning when you found out Jamie's diagnosis?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Let's see. It was January of 2020, and it was a typical Thursday morning. We worked together. We had owned a business in Seven Fields. It was it's hard to describe as an office of Northwestern Mutual, which is financial planning, life insurance, very handy in this situation. Um, and we were just having a normal morning, and he went into his office, and I will forever remember someone running down the hallway and yelling, "Something's wrong with Jamie! Something's wrong with Jamie!" And so we all got up. We were eating lunch, and we all got up and ran back to his office, and I could see um, something was wrong, and it kind of looked like a stroke. It kind of looked. I'm not sure. I don't even know what it was. So we called 911, and it was a seizure, and he was taken by ambulance to Passavant up in the North Hills. And by the time he'd gotten to Passavant, he had had another seizure and he was unable to speak. And it was quite traumatizing at that point because he had gone from just a normal Thursday morning to this. Because of that second seizure, they decided to life flight him to down into Pittsburgh and to hospital is that?
Mercy?
No, it was a bigger one.
Presby.
Presby, thank you. And life flighted him down there, and we then spent the next 6 days down there trying to figure out what was going on. And eventually, he was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer or glioblastoma, and it was diffuse, meaning that it was had many arms, as they described it, or tentacles into the brain versus just one mass. And so that made it inoperable. There were also different components of the brain tumor, different cell types of it that also made it very dangerous. It was not going to respond to chemotherapy. There's all different types of cell things that I couldn't even describe today, but I just knew it was a big bad brain tumor. And so then you deep dive into, well, what caused this and how does this happen? And the end result was Jamie just looking at me and saying, well, I drew the short straw for all of us. And I thought, okay, there are some theories about cell phones and wires and all the things that we all are kind of in the back of our head know are dangerous, but there's really no proof of any of that. And so it happens in most predominantly men around 50, although he was 48 at the time, 48, 47 at the time. Um, yeah, it's just a big, dangerous disease that just comes out of nowhere. And ironically, he had had a MRI 2 years prior to that day, and there was no. And he had it because he was an avid soccer player, and he had had multiple concussions, and he wanted to make sure he was okay. And on that MRI, it's clear there's nothing, and that was 2 years prior. So there was no warning. There were some symptoms and signs. That Christmas he had complained of his grip strength changing because, as we would later find out, he would lose movement in his right hand. But I told him to go work out, get one of those hand gripper things,
Background into fitness, go work out.
go work out.
It fixes everything.
Stop telling me your problems, go work
Yeah.
out. And he was having some word finding issues, but it was more like, we all have word finding issues. So it was nothing that we would have thought, oh, we need to go have an MRI. So a lot of times glioblastoma is found through this type of situation where it's a seizure or there's some disorientation or some word finding. It just depends on where the tumor eventually grows, and there's no rhyme or reason to how that develops. It just did. So yeah, short straw. That's his.
That was his
There,
reasoning.
there's no lifestyle to get away from the short straw. So
No. And he was healthy. He played soccer
yes,
all the time.
healthy. He was never overweight. Like I have a wardrobe with every size under the sun, and he has the same wardrobe through his whole life,
Yeah.
which was helpful because he liked nice suits. But yeah, he would get rated, all the underwriting for all the insurances and things that you have, and then he would always come back Premier Plus, and he made sure we had to acknowledge how healthy he was. So he was very healthy.
Yes.
And very active, very busy. We ran a business and our family, and you know, He's just busy guy.
Right. And we were speaking before we started the podcast, and you had told me just that morning, because you owned that part of Northwest, that he signed a document that
Yeah.
really helped you out. What was that document?
It was disability insurance. And so prior in October of 2019, so just a few months before, he had looked at me and we were just talking, and he was always analyzing our coverage and what we had. And he said, well, if something happens to me, we're really screwed if I don't have this additional insurance. And so he was debating on additional disability insurance versus additional life insurance. And he at that point, and it was going to be another $250 a month for that disability insurance, but I don't know. I always managed to figure out a way to make that to pay those bills. And so he had done all the paperwork and all of the things in the months prior, but months after that discussion to qualify for more disability insurance, specifically around our rent and payroll, which was about $45,000 a month just to wake up and open the doors. And so that had been covered. And so the final document for that was signed that morning, like 2 hours before his seizure. That seizure was at 11 and that document was signed at 9.
Wow.
9 a.m. And so that allowed us so much breathing room in the months that would come, because he was unable to go back to work after that day. And we thought he would be able to go back to work, but he wasn't.
Right. And how many employees did you have at that
We
time?
had 6 at that point, and we had, total, we had probably 30, 35 people connected to our office, but 6 direct employees
Hmm.
and about 7,000 square feet of office space. So, it wasn't insignificant, and um, it was a game changer for us, was that, or a game saver for us, was that, those policies,
Right.
for sure.
Um, and then also too, you have two children.
Yes.
And how old were they?
They were 17 and 15 at the time. They were in high school at Seneca Valley. They were involved in club sports, club soccer. We're that obnoxious, annoying Cranberry family who everybody's got to be in club, and then the school program. So they were involved with the soccer and cheer dance programs at the school, as well as their own club programs. And that's big business in itself to have two at the same time. So um, my goal as a mom, in that my first goal was to keep their life as normal as possible, as stable as possible. All the activities needed to continue as possible. There was going to be no change to their stability, was my ultimate reaction. I think would be a reaction to any mom. But then 2 months or a month later, COVID hit. So that went out the door.
Add another layer. Yes, yes.
That went
So,
out the door. Absolutely.
however, with everything being shut down, you guys were all together.
Yes, COVID, I say this often, that COVID was a gift for us. We had like 65 hotel rooms reserved for that year for sports, club sports, which is absurd anyway. And so when COVID shut everything down, it was like, oh, wow, okay, we're going to save money,
Right.
but we don't have to go all over the country in different directions, and we could be together and be under one roof. And and that was hard too, but it was a better choice for us at that point, to just be together and not have to worry. And we did, of course, All Star Cheer is its own, they have their own rules there, so we did travel with them, but it wasn't nearly what the original intention was of that year.
Was that your son's junior year or senior
It
year?
was his junior year, January of his junior year,
Okay.
and then it would lead into his senior year for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the first few weeks or months like emotionally for you?
Immediately went on Lexapro and got a Xanax prescription for sure, because I was having issues at night, and just massive, massive anxiety, because I knew it had altered our life so significantly, just day in and day out, and just not knowing, and expecting, every day for the 17 months he did live, I was waiting for another seizure every day. It was like massive PTSD for that time. How we coped was just being together, staying in action, making sure that he had the best possible care. We were exploring every avenue possible, changing his diet. One doctor suggested an anti-candida diet, which was like, I don't even know what that means, like no growth. So it
Right.
was all, so no mushrooms or that type of stuff, but it was all meat, vegetables. And, in hindsight, would I do that again? I don't know.
Right.
At one point he started to sneak ice cream and I'm like, well, forget it. We're done. I'm done making all this food.
Right. Right.
Um,
Because that would be no sugar.
yes, no
And
sugar.
that would put, I mean, that would put me over the edge.
Yes, and him and me.
Hmm.
And we had, meal trains coming and people are very generous with their meal trains and, that didn't match what he needed. So it was kind of this, you know, cycle of food and trying to manage all that, which was that's not a complaint. It's just kind of
Right.
what we had going on. So emotionally, how did we manage? There were a lot of tears. I didn't fully appreciate how quickly he would lose his ability to talk. And in hindsight, I wish we had had more real conversations about him actually dying versus the conversations about his treatment.
Okay.
Um, those are important conversations to have with your loved ones. They're hard to have, but if I could go back, I'd have more conversations about funeral, post life, you know. But at the same time, some of those conversations were very one off through our marriage. Like, if I ever die, go have a party and then go live your life.
Right.
So that's what I did. And that was kind of how I've led our him since his passing and honoring him. But yeah, there was the only conversation he's had about our kids was that he would like his brother to walk Natalie down the aisle. And that's important, but there's
Right.
so many other questions I'd like answered,
Right.
but we're just kind of winging it. So, but there's also a gift in that I'm not, I'm designing my own life at this point, which
Yeah.
is new. But
When I know you said that you're not an expert in the glioblastoma. When you found out the parameters or the lifespan, can you speak about
Sure.
that?
Jamie was Jamie, right? He was super positive. He was very, no, don't take no for an answer. That's just not how he rolled. And so we would tell other people not to look up the parameters and say, don't. And you could tell when people would look up at the parameters because then they would look us in the eyes and they knew.
Right.
But we were like, it's not going to apply to us.
Yep.
Jamie's different, which he was. But, we kind of kept that at bay. And there's this 5% 3 to 5% would live to 5 years. And I think and I know Jamie was going to do whatever it took to get to that at least 3 to 5 years. Because at that point, you're bargaining with the world. Like, okay, how about 3 to 5 years?
Right.
It's better than, a year and 17 months. And so that was the goal, was just kind of driving and exploring all the things possible. What the nice thing about COVID is that it changed healthcare. And so we were able to have a lot of virtual appointments. So we had virtual appointments with every top brain cancer um, group doctor across the US. We probably had 5 or 6 virtual appointments with, and we kept getting the same answer, but at least we stayed in action
Right. And you
felt
weren't
like,
traveling to Cleveland Clinic or,
well, we didn't do that. We ended up traveling to UPenn, which has a really, I think has one of the most aggressive treatment possibilities. Glioblastoma still doesn't have a cure, but they're doing a lot of therapies that have a problem, or the most aggressive, I would say.
Mhm.
And then we did go to the Cleveland Clinic, and I absolutely loved their setup, but the message is always the same.
Yeah.
But then we were able to speak to Boston, Duke, San Francisco, some of the big people in the brain tumor world of research and treatment and care. So,
Right.
yeah.
What were some of the hardest decisions that you had to make early on?
Well, we were told that his tumor was inoperable because of the nature of the way it grew. And we were told that because I think the neurosurgeons knew that he would immediately lose his speech and they wanted to give us, I'm only speculating, this is just kind of hindsight. wanted to give us as long as an opportunity as we could to have his speech. And they were right, you know. So we finally, we kept putting feelers out and talking to different people, and finally UPenn came back. This was June. So he was diagnosed in January. This is June. And they said, we will operate. And so it was a hard decision. Like, we were going to leave the kids. And let me back up. The other hard decision was walking away from UPenn's treatment in January, because they were one of the most progressive, but it required us to live in Philadelphia
Oh, wow.
and come back and forth. And, we had the kids and our, Jamie and me, and it didn't see, and COVID was starting, and it just seemed impossible at that point. So we did walk away from that, and I'm glad we did, because I don't think it would have made a difference at that point. But we did go back for surgery, and that was not a hard decision, but it was in the sense that he was having a craniotomy in Philadelphia. So we spent a week in Philadelphia. And as we talked earlier, it was at the height of COVID, and so we were on the floor above where people were dying of COVID, and they had all these crazy rules that you could only have one caregiver in, and they could only go in, and you had to stay for the day. And if you left, you couldn't come back. And so I spent 5 days in his hospital because he couldn't speak, just making sure he was, cared for appropriately in that environment. And not that they wouldn't have, but I knew what he could communicate with me because we've been married for 20 years.
Right.
Um, and then deciding at that point, I think the other one now that I'm thinking is that I decided to have him medically transported from Philly to Harmarville for rehab for a week.
Mhm.
And I felt very selfish about that, because I thought, well, why can't I just drive him home? But then I'm looking at him, and he has 37 stitches on his skull, and I'm thinking, I can't. I
Right.
can't. And
Right.
so he was medically transported, which I don't know that I would do that again. It was just like two randos in a fake ambulance, and I don't know that they paid attention to him at all for 5 hours, which breaks my heart. And then the rehab in Harmarville, a lot of those people are a lot much older, and I would have to go in there and say, you know, 6 months ago he was in New York on a business trip,
Right.
and now you're like locking him up at 5, and it was very hard. I would still do it again, but it was a hard decision for me to say, I need to go home and get some sleep, connect with my children, make sure they're okay, because they were home and they were fine, but they're home with my mom, and I know she was tired, and it was a lot. It was, to process all of that, make decisions, and honor his wishes at that point,
Yeah.
for sure.
How did, how did, how was your relationship with friends and family?
Um, I have a core set of friends that, my girlfriends. We all have our girlfriends, and I don't want to list. I want to list them, but I don't. So I'm gonna forget people.
Right. Right.
I don't do that.
They know who they are.
I always hate when people say that too. Is it me?
I don't know. Could be.
Um, Certainly my girlfriends through all of this have been truly incredible. My sister, um, has been key in this. Um, Family, especially his family, it was a really hard time, and it would be hard, I think, if something were to happen to your boys and you have to step aside for their life
Right.
to be the person in control. And so, to answer your question in a nutshell, is, there were times it was really hard and really stressful. And so we've all kind of taken that time and said, okay, we did the best we could at that time. And we're going to give each other all the grace in the world, and just kind of move that aside and move forward as a family. And it was nothing terrible. It was just a lot of uncertainty and stress and pressing buttons and trying to get things done, especially when they felt that they didn't have control, because they had to trust me, and that was a different dynamic. But our extended family, especially his extended family, we had one Easter that everybody showed up with a crock pot. It's fantastic, because there was nothing I could provide other than we were just tired. And yeah, I mean, the community, our Seneca Valley cheer and soccer community, our club communities, cheer and soccer, showed up big time, big time. Financially, they showed up because there was a period that I didn't know what that was going to look like. So, yeah, when people say they're overwhelmed by the kindness, it does at the beginning for sure. There's a lot of love and kindness and support, and then it changes,
Right.
you know.
Do you feel, as you're saying this, I feel like, I've been on food chains, you've been on food chains,
Yeah.
and you do that for a time period, and then it kind of drops off, it fades away. And that's where your core group of girlfriends were there to kind
For
of
sure.
catch that ball.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, and family, and then people that you would never expect would show up with food. And not that, it was just the fact that we didn't have to plan the food, and we had I had to buy I didn't have to, but I bought a deep freezer to
Right.
make sure we use the food. We have connections through the Need Cafe in New Kensington, which is, if you Google, that's a whole other story, but they delivered a meal every week. New Kensington, because they had an employee out here, but or near our home. But yeah, the food was not a problem. I always say I put on weight because it was like menopause, grief, and a food train all collided.
that's a big collision. Yes.
I would say though, when this happens to someone, like if it's immediate or if it's a fresh diagnosis or whatever, I wouldn't hesitate to give people money at all. I know you guys gave us money just because you guys are amazing, but that money went towards this giant parking bill I had trying to get out of Passivant.
Right.
That after being there for 6 days, and I'm thinking, we were life flighted here. Is there not a coupon or something?
Yeah.
Like,
Is there a ticket you could punch?
but I didn't have any cash. And it was just so nice to have that money in my pocket and go, okay, I got this. I can do this, and it's not just it's just all kinds of stuff that you don't know is coming up and you're not sure, because even if you have disability or whatever, it still takes time to arrive. So there's this period of unknown where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's coming. So, when people ask me what is most helpful, really, I wouldn't hesitate to give people cash and or gift cards for sure.
Right.
Because that was grocery gift cards especially, was really helpful. And then in time, it just was like, you just felt the love through all of that generosity that people had. And that was really, really amazing. Really incredible.
Yeah.
You know,
And thank goodness, thank goodness. I think too, back, when you were going through it, I don't know how some of your other friends felt, but I felt helpless,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
I wanted to, and again, COVID, so you can't just like show up and hug people, because I'm sure you were
COVID.
like, you're not coming in. I love you, but like through the screen door, say whatever, but you would feel like, how do I help my friend?
Yeah.
How do I do it? And
Yeah.
it's, you know, I looked at the food chain and it was like covered, everything
Yeah.
covered. It's all covered.
Just amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
But then too, I also thought, being in the health and fitness field as I was before, I'm like, what can be healthy? Is he on a special diet? You said
Right.
that he was, but just to be there.
Yes. Yes.
think it's
Even I would have people send me just miscellaneous texts with no expectation for response, and it was on the regular. That and those that was very helpful. It's still helpful today, especially around holidays and that kind of stuff. But
Right.
um, yeah, that just being there and um, messaging and texting, calling, leaving messages, hey, you don't have to call me back. Just want to let you know I'm thinking of you and you're not alone, because it's a very lonely journey when you're, in that process for any type of cancer, any type of situation that takes your life on a left-hand turn,
Right.
you know?
So I know Jamie was home for the most part. Were you his primary caregiver?
Yes, yes. Which was kind of every day brought something different. It was like the Wild West in my house, and he would go from not being able to speak, and then he had two craniotomies, and then Christmas Eve of 2020, and he passed in May of 2021. I have video of him jogging up our road, and we were going for a walk, and then he started jogging, and I was like, well, I'm drinking coffee. I don't know. I was walking. You can jog. He still wanted to maintain his independence a lot, and I get that. Like, and this was absolutely his greatest nightmare, all of it.
Hmm.
And he would go for walks through our neighborhood, which was fine, except he couldn't speak. So if he got lost, or if someone stopped him, there would be major confusion. So we had some neighbors. We would text and say, do you have eyes on him? Have you seen him?
Yeah.
Uh, we eventually put a medical alert bracelet on him just to in case he got lost, but he hated that. That was not him.
Right.
He One day the Chase and I were in the garage packing. He was going skiing, and the policeman came up the driveway, and I was like, okay, what's happening? And he says, did you call 911? I said, well, no. Everybody's okay here. And he was like, well, someone from this location has called 911. And I said, well, there's only one person that would have done that. And it's probably my husband. He has brain cancer and he's working out in our basement gym. And sure enough, and the police officer was like, we need to check on him. I said,
Oh, wow.
that's
Okay.
so he came in. Sure enough, Jamie's in the basement. He's smiling. He's holding his phone and he's okay.
Do you know why he dialed 911?
I just don't know. I don't think he knew how to answer his phone.
Oh,
Like because of
okay.
even though the executive function also where the tumor was also impacted his processing and thought. Like, I had video of him trying to cut a bush or trim a bush, and it looks crazy. And there's a sprinkler going, and it's hitting him like he's not moving, and he's laughing. He hung a bike in our garage, and it was in front of a door and is very proud of that. Again, that's his greatest nightmare. That was not him at all. He was very put together. He was very, um, that was not him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he was an entrepreneur. He was a businessman. He, you know, ran a company.
Yes. Built it.
Yes.
Yes. Built his own practice. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, truthfully, I think it would be difficult for anyone, but especially someone like Jamie,
Mhm.
who he played soccer at 11 o'clock at night on his soccer team. I'm like, do you not sleep? Like, what is
Mhm.
happening? Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it would be difficult.
So he was able to care for himself. And the full-time caregiving didn't come until probably February of 2021.
Okay.
And thankfully, we had long-term care insurance, and I was able to hire nurses and staff. Um, I should say staff, but nurses to come and help us 4 hours a day. He probably would have preferred to have been in a facility, and then when he was eventually on hospice, to be put in a hospice facility. But because it was COVID, all the nursing staff, everybody we spoke to said, "Don't do it. You'll never see him." And so
Right.
I chose to have him at home and cared for at home, which was better for us, although I know that's not how he saw that going down. If, we were to have a real conversation, but
And that really wasn't something how would he know what COVID was?
right,
You know?
right. Or that was the impact at the beginning he would, but at that point he wouldn't have,
Right.
right, understood that. But, um, so yeah, we had nursing care start in February, and my mom was living with us, and she happened to be a retired head and spinal cord injury nurse,
Oh, wow.
right? Little God winks in there, and I'm not that religious,
Right.
but she was a big help in that, although he hated it
Well,
because you don't imagine your mother-in-law.
it's your mother-in-law.
He hated it. But we had also gotten a puppy, so she was busy raising the puppy.
I think it was a great time to get a puppy. We were speaking prior to this, and Laura had said not the best time in the world, but what do puppies bring?
Joy.
Joy.
Yeah.
Absolute. And it's a dachshund.
It's a long-haired dachshund, yeah.
Yeah. Like, how much more joy could you get?
So my mom was busy,
Yes, yes.
but yeah.
Did Jamie like the puppy?
He actually came with us. Natalie kept asking for, our daughter kept asking for this puppy, and he would shake his head, and then she would walk away, and he'd go. It was very cute, and so he came with us to pick up the dog, and it was very sweet. So he was on board with the guy getting the dog, and then just randomly go out and buy long-haired dogs, and
Here.
um, yeah, and he interacted with the dog a little bit, but then it became not. We also had two pointers at the time too, so that was our third dog in the
Yeah.
house. And my oldest pointer, who's since passed, but that was his dog, so she spent the majority of the time with him on his bed and
Yeah.
being with him. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's I'm partial to dogs and how they bring joy and happiness. And I can imagine, you know,
Oh yes. Yeah.
how he felt and even how the dog felt about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so what message would you give other women? You said that that this type of brain cancer is predominant in men.
Mhm.
What would you give advice to other women in your shoes that could possibly walk through this journey?
Um, in terms of the illness, in terms of just as
I would say, um, with your own health, like I know probably things stopped for you taking care of yourself. What, the family dynamic, you said that like my primary goal was for my kids not to, not be able to go to school or not be able to go into their practice. If you were able to talk to another woman that is walking this path with her husband, what would be something that you would say, keep this in the forefront of your mind or do X?
I think it's one day at a time, for sure.
Mhm.
Every day there is another side to it. It's not going to look how you think it looks. Um, it's not going to be at all what you dreamed it would be for the last time, especially in our age bracket. Um, but it's doable. To reach out for help, that you're not alone. It's a lot easier to do it alone, right? But it's a dangerous place to be. In terms of your health, you know, I don't think I would change anything. My exercise was not a priority because I didn't have the energy for it.
Hmm.
But to give yourself grace to know that there's another side of it, and there's going to be a time
Right.
for those types of things, and your own wellness. I did have a therapist during that, and that my mental health was most important, I think, for me, just because of all it was absurd the decisions we had to make every day, and just our day-to-day life, and that was very helpful. There is hope. And, when people, I think a lot of widows, because, those are my people now, we talk about, how people comment that we're so strong, right? Oh, we're the strongest people know. And that sentiment for us is very frustrating because I didn't choose to be strong, right? I was forced into this situation, and I've had to and that. And, and so I guess my point is, and so are you. Like, so with that person is that you are strong because you have to be, especially if you have kids involved, especially if young kids. There's a lot of widows. I've talked to little kids. I can't imagine raising little kids in this. Like, look, there's always something worse, as we
Right.
talked about.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's hope. There's always hope. And even in the worst of times, and I'm not very religious, but I felt like whether it's the universe or God, there were always points during this whole situation that there were little lights that just led our way that worked out in our favor for some unknown reason.
Yeah. Uh, yes, I definitely believe that. So, what brings you joy today?
Let's see. I have this poster in my room and it says she built a life that she loved. And that's kind of my foundation for every day
Mm.
is I'm building a life that I love. And I'm fortunate that I get to build that life. That sounds crazy because I lost a significant part of my life, but there's no other option. I don't get to go back, and he doesn't get to walk in the door, or we don't get to see him again. And so it gives me great joy to have a home I love, and my kids are healthy, and my kids are doing well. And I'm as supportive as I can of them. They're in their 20s now, which is insane because they were not 20 years ago.
Right.
Um, My dogs, we share this, but people are like, well, how do you get out of bed every day? And I was like, well, if I have dogs,
Yes.
that's how I get out of bed. But I'm thankful for that.
Right.
Um, I feel very fortunate in that. And then just the love of my family and my friends and it's not at all what I thought my life would be, and I still can't believe this is the life that we've been handed. I've had, it's been 4 years since his passing, and I can't believe I even feel it. Not that I feel at peace, but just we're okay.
Hmm.
It's taken a while though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and lots of therapy
Yes.
and Lexapro.
Yeah. Okay. So, how has your story shaped you, and how do you want it to shape others?
It's shaped me mostly that I'm much more empathetic and patient. And I get into situations and I think, okay, we can handle this, or if we have to make a decision or, just having to be more independent around, managing a home and managing the actual home and the structure of it.
Hmm.
Just making decisions about my own life. It's very weird. Still question whether I think. But how it's mostly shaped me is understanding and seeing as a woman how ignorant I was to my own financial planning and wanting to share my story to encourage women to be a little bit more aware of theirs. And when I say financial planning, it's just kind of besides your income and expense of your day to day, which is we're all really good at, or we get good at because we wonder where the money's going. Strange. But just the long term planning and becoming more of an advocate for women to really just encourage them to look at that. And it really, when people say financial planning, because that's me, I clock right out. That's not my thing, but it's silly things like your passwords. Where are your passwords and where are your husband's passwords? And even if you're not going to share passwords, put a password keeper password in an envelope and put it somewhere that you both know where it's located. So because passwords were such a pain in processing his post paperwork and getting everything set up. And then something as simple as a will, and making sure there's a will. We had just done our will that year. I mean, the timing of it again, those universe things.
Right.
Because when you're, and I have a lot of friends who are like, oh, my husband takes care of our finances. And that's not cute when you're forced into a situation like this. And there are husbands out there that aren't planning, if you have a strained marriage, that aren't planning for you upon their death. And so to peek in and see what's going on. And if you need help to hire someone, it's not, I always get that, well, I don't want someone else to take my money. Well, did you go to school for this? Because I certainly didn't.
Right.
I still don't really, that's not my thing.
Right.
So how's it shaped me? It's just, I feel like I said, I'm more resilient, more compassionate, much more patient. I see things happen to little things that happen in the world, they don't bother me as much because I think we've already been through this,
Right.
the worst that could happen, which is my younger self would be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Although Jamie's younger self would have been like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. That's why I did life insurance.
That's why I went into that. So we talked about your sense you walked through this part of your life. Where you want to go next is to help other people, other women
by encouraging them to be more aware of their financial life. Most of the widows I've spoken to, it was a surprise whether or not they had life insurance or not. It was a surprise that their credit cards, it was a surprise, that things were not as they appeared. And that to me is the discussion for women around financial planning is, at least in our generation, and the younger generation, unfortunately, has the statistics are showing that they're more involved, but they're still not as involved in the long-term financial planning. And it's not just life insurance and disability and long-term care; it's also retirement planning and all of the other things that go with financial planning. And I know this is so. Again, I would shut this conversation down in a second because
because that's not going to happen to me.
That's not going to happen to me. I don't care.
Yep.
Someone else is taking care of it. It'll
Yes.
work out. I'll figure it out. And you will. I mean, if you do nothing that, um, nothing today moving forward, it'll, and something happens, you'll figure it out. It'll just look different, like, than what you think it would. But I am certainly grateful that I was able to stay in my home. My kids are able to go to college. We were able to keep everything very, very status quo, and I'm able to live a life. And my Jamie's planning weirdly did not support my shopping and travel budget.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So I do need to work through that. But by sharing my story and sharing that, just that suggestion, because if you suggest too much, right, people just shut it down. They're like, I'll deal with it.
Right.
I'll deal with it later. And it's just little things that can be done. And financial planning isn't like today it's done. He would never have qualified for those policies when we first started the business, right? So it was only then would we have qualified for some of that amount of money to cover the disability planning and the life insurance. But
Right.
I know it's confusing.
It is.
And I'm not an expert by any means. I just know the other side of it.
Right. And you were blessed to have Jamie know that and be very aware of it. And I mean, we know a lot of the same people, and I know a lot of my people don't have anything in play just in case. And you had told me another statistic about men and women who passes first.
The men.
Yes.
Yes.
The majority of the time, the men pass and the women are still here left to pick up the
Yeah.
pieces or even just continue on. And it's something that everyone needs to think about.
Well, and just to be able to log into because it doesn't, Jamie would say, well, we have this amount of coverage and this amount of coverage, and that didn't mean anything. It means something to me now because I know what that looks like.
Right.
But it didn't mean anything to me then, but I at least knew how to log in and find out or know who to talk to, or, just have some sort of support in that area, which was huge because it's so overwhelming. And it's okay that it's overwhelming. It's just the way it is. But to know at least how to access things and know what's out there, know that there is something out there. And if your spouse comes home and says, we need to buy this policy and it's X amount of dollars. I have a friend that told her husband not to do that because it was going to be too much monthly. And he ignored her, thankfully, and since passed. And she's has the life insurance policy. But,
Wow.
he ignored her, thank goodness. And I look at Jamie and I think, how awesome is it that his legacy is not just our children and the impact he had on my life and our family, but that his legacy is that he planned for us, and whether it's your spouse or you that plans for that, someone has planned for the post life, and to not be afraid to discuss death. It's going to happen.
Right.
I never wanted to discuss it.
No.
No. But it would have been helpful.
Yeah. I mean, no one gets out of here alive.
No. So that's sure why everybody's afraid to talk about it. But it's
Right.
and I get it. I was too. So
Yeah.
But experience has taught me otherwise. And again, I would never. My younger self would be shocked that this is, and I'm still shocked that this is our life. I still, as much as I've grieved his passing, I still wait for him to come through the door and. I still hear him in my head. I feel like when Country Roads is played, he's making sure he's inserting himself into whatever's happening at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you both went to WVU. That's where you met.
Yeah, met there, and then at his funeral, the Dustin Bush, January's husband, suggested at the last minute, why don't I play Country Roads as everybody's leaving? And we were like, okay, sounds like a good idea, whatever. And it was a game changer for us that song has stuck for everybody for Jamie, which is actually very fitting.
Right.
And it's played in a ridiculous amount of places.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine it. I mean, you were just in Europe. I don't know if you ever heard it over there.
Oh yeah, actually I requested it, but I do have people traveling in Europe. They were in Rome and they heard it, and they were in Ireland and they heard it, and they'll send me videos. And yeah, it's weird. But I know my other widow friends, they have similar things that pop up. They're like, okay,
Yep.
you know,
He's here.
he's here somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, we miss him. We definitely miss him. And he probably tell you he knew that was going to happen. And he got a lot of life packed into his life. Not that that makes it okay that he passed. He was 48 when he passed, but he was a busy man.
That he was.
Very busy person.
Yeah. Yes. But I mean, good way, but he was just a great,
Yeah. Thank you.
great man.
Yeah.
Great man. I thank you so much
Oh my gosh.
for
Thank
telling
you.
your story. And I truly hope that this is your catalyst
Me
to doing what you want to do and helping more women that may not be in this position right now, but just bringing awareness to the possibilities
Yeah.
of making sure everything is in place so there's less struggle.
Yeah. And less surprised.
Mhm.
It's the surprise element that can be the hardest for sure. But
Right. Well, I thank you, Laura. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate
I'm
it.
honored to be on. Thank you.
All right. Okay.